Hey Reddit, I never thought I'd end up posting here, but I need to share this for my sanity. My name's Ryan, I'm 37, and up until a few months ago, I thought I had the perfect life. I've been married to Jenna, 35, for 12 years. We have a nice house, no kids, by choice, and what I thought was a rock-solid marriage. I'm the kind of guy who believes in loyalty, trust, and putting your partner first. I thought Jenna did too. Turns out, I was dead wrong. Jenna and I met in college. She was smart, funny, and the kind of woman who could turn heads without even trying. She had ambition, a sharp wit, and a charm that could disarm anyone. I admired her drive, and I was proud of the life we built together. She landed a high-powered corporate job about 5 years ago, and I was happy to support her while I focused on my own work as a software developer. At first, her new job seemed like a blessing. She was excited, energetic, and full of ideas about her career. But over the past year, something changed. Jenna started spending more time at work, often coming home late, claiming she had meetings or deadlines. She was constantly on her phone, always texting or laughing at messages. When I asked who she was talking to, she'd wave me off with a dismissive, "Just work stuff, Ryan." I brushed it off, thinking I was being paranoid. After all, I trusted her. Why wouldn't I? But then the little things started piling up. She started dressing differently, more daring, more expensive. She'd come home smelling like cologne that wasn't mine, and when I joked about it, she'd snap, saying I was imagining things. The real gut punch came one afternoon when I received an anonymous email. It was from a burner account, with no subject line, just a single attachment. I opened it, and my stomach dropped. It was a series of photos of Jenna at a work event. In one, she was standing close to her boss, Tom, smiling in a way that seemed too familiar. In another, they were laughing, her hand on his chest. The final image was a video of the two of them sneaking off into a hallway, disappearing from view. I sat there, staring at the screen, feeling like the ground had been ripped out from under me. This couldn't be real. Jenna wouldn't do this, would she? I wasn't sure what to believe. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but the nagging feeling in my gut wouldn't go away. That's when I decided to dig deeper. If there was more to this, I needed to know. And if it wasn't true, I needed to prove it to myself. Little did I know, this was only the beginning of a nightmare I never saw coming. After the shock of the anonymous email, I couldn't stop replaying the images and video in my head. It felt like someone had taken a sledgehammer to my chest. But I knew I needed proof, undeniable, irrefutable proof, before I confronted Jenna. I wasn't going to accuse her based on photos that might have been innocent or out of context. That night, as Jenna came home late again, I asked her casually about the work event in the photos. She acted nonchalant, brushing it off as just another boring corporate gathering. When I pressed further, she rolled her eyes. "Ryan, seriously, it's work. What do you want me to say?" I networked, I smiled, and I came home. Her tone was biting, as though I was an annoyance for even asking. That was the moment I decided I couldn't trust her words anymore. If I wanted the truth, I had to find it myself. The next day, I hired a private investigator. It wasn't an easy decision. I felt dirty, like I was violating the sanctity of our marriage, but I told myself it was necessary. The investigator, Mark, was a no-nonsense guy who'd seen it all. I showed him the email and photos, and he nodded grimly. "I'll find out what's going on," he said. "But I need you to be ready for whatever we uncover." Over the next few weeks, I played the part of the oblivious husband. I acted as if everything was normal, smiling through gritted teeth as Jenna continued her routine of late nights and work trips. Meanwhile, Mark kept me updated on his findings. What he discovered was worse than I'd imagined. Mark confirmed that Jenna was having an affair with Tom, her boss. The two of them had been meeting at hotels during lunch breaks and after work. But that wasn't the worst of it. As Mark dug deeper, he uncovered something even more shocking. Jenna was also involved with Charlie, the CEO of her company. They had been sneaking around for months, exchanging late-night texts and meeting at corporate retreats. The dual betrayal hit me like a freight train. It wasn't just one man. it was two. My wife wasn't just having an affair. She was living a double life, deceiving me while climbing the corporate ladder on the backs of her relationships. The woman I thought I knew, the woman I'd loved for over a decade, was nothing more than a liar. I could have confronted her right then and there, but I decided to wait. I wanted to be smart about this. If Jenna was going to destroy our marriage, I was going to make sure she didn't get away with it. And so, I began planning my revenge. I spent the next few days trying to act normal, though it felt like my entire world was collapsing. Jenna, oblivious to the storm brewing behind the scenes, carried on with her double life. She still smiled at me in the mornings, kissed me goodbye before heading to work, and occasionally texted me during the day about mundane things like groceries or dinner plans. It was infuriating to watch her pretend everything was fine when I knew the truth. Finally, I couldn't hold back any longer. One evening, after Jenna came home late yet again, I decided to confront her. She walked into the house, her heels clicking on the floor, looking every bit the polished professional. I was sitting in the living room, waiting for her. "Hey," she said casually, setting her purse on the counter. "Sorry I'm late. Work ran over." "Work?" I said, my voice calm but cold. "Or Tom?" Her head snapped toward me, and for a moment, I saw panic flash across her face. But she quickly recovered, crossing her arms and raising an eyebrow. "What are you talking about, Ryan?" "Don't play dumb, Jenna," I said, standing up. "I know about you and Tom. And while we're at it, let's not forget Charlie." Her face went pale, and for a second, she seemed genuinely speechless. But then she laughed, a sharp, bitter sound that sent chills down my spine. "Oh, so now you're spying on me? Real classy, Ryan. You've officially lost it." I took a deep breath, trying to keep my anger in check. "Don't turn this around on me. I have proof, Jenna. Photos, videos, texts, everything. So don't even try to deny it." She glared at me, her face twisting into a look of disdain. "Fine. You want the truth? Yes, I've been seeing Tom. And Charlie. But guess what, Ryan? You're the one who drove me to it." I froze, stunned by her audacity. "What the hell are you talking about?" "You're boring, Ryan," she spat. "You've been so wrapped up in your own little world, your work, your stupid hobbies. You stopped paying attention to me years ago. I needed excitement, passion, something you clearly couldn't give me." Her words cut deep, but I refused to let her see how much they hurt. Instead, I smiled, a cold, calculated expression that seemed to catch her off guard. "Thanks for admitting it," I said, my voice steady. "You just made things a lot easier for me." "What's that supposed to mean?" she asked, narrowing her eyes. "You'll find out soon enough," I replied, turning and walking out of the room. I could hear her calling after me, demanding answers, but I didn't stop. She thought she was in control, that she could manipulate her way out of this like she always did. But she had no idea what I had planned. Jenna wasn't just going to face the consequences of her actions. She was going to feel them. After our confrontation, I knew Jenna was shaken, but she tried to act like she still had the upper hand. Her smug attitude, her dismissive behavior, and her refusal to acknowledge the damage she'd done only fueled my resolve. She had no idea that I wasn't just planning to leave her. I was preparing to dismantle her entire facade. I reached out to my lawyer the next day, laying everything out for him. The photos, the texts, the videos, all the evidence I'd gathered through the private investigator was airtight. Not only could I file for divorce with overwhelming proof of infidelity, but I could also set legal traps for her and her relationships with Tom and Charlie. The more I dug into their connections, the more it became clear that their affairs weren't just personal. They were a blatant misuse of company resources. Business trips, corporate accounts, even company events had been used to fuel their secret lives. My lawyer was sharp, and together we crafted a plan. Jenna had been climbing the corporate ladder by leveraging these relationships, but her behavior violated every ethical and professional boundary imaginable. If she thought she could cheat on me and come out unscathed, she was about to learn the hard way just how wrong she was. The first part of the plan was to gather even more evidence. I wanted everything airtight before I made my move. I instructed the private investigator to monitor her interactions with Tom and Charlie even more closely. Within a week, he provided me with emails and receipts that showed how they'd been expensing their hotel stays and lavish dinners to the company. This wasn't just infidelity, it was fraud. The second part of the plan was to prepare for the fallout. I quietly moved half of our joint funds into a separate account, ensuring she couldn't drain our finances when things went south. I also made arrangements to stay at a friend's place temporarily after the bomb dropped. Jenna would have no idea I was gone until it was too late. In the meantime, I continued to play along, pretending like everything was normal. I smiled through dinners, asked about her day, and even agreed when she suggested we host a small gathering at our house for her coworkers. It was sickening to watch her act so confident, so sure that she had me fooled. The night of the gathering, I watched as Jenna charmed her colleagues, laughing and flirting with Tom while I stood in the background. Little did she know, I had already sent an anonymous package to her company's board of directors, containing all the evidence of her affairs and the financial misconduct tied to her bosses. The fallout wasn't just going to ruin her marriage, it was going to destroy her career. As I stood there, watching her bask in her lies, I felt a cold sense of satisfaction. Jenna thought she was untouchable, that she could manipulate everyone around her and get away with it. But the storm was coming, and she didn't even see it. I just had to wait. The days leading up to the explosion were a test of patience. Jenna continued her routine of late nights, flirtatious text messages, and condescending remarks about how I should trust her more. It took every ounce of willpower to bite my tongue, but I knew the wait would be worth it. Then, it finally happened. On a Thursday morning, Jenna's company held an all-hands meeting. She left the house dressed to impress, excited about what she described as a big announcement at work. I knew exactly what that announcement would be. Her company's board of directors had received the anonymous package days earlier, and their investigation had uncovered even more than I expected. It wasn't just Jenna and her bosses who were implicated in misconduct. A chain of financial fraud and personal scandal was exposed, implicating multiple people in her department. That afternoon, I received a text from Jenna. It was brief and frantic. "Call me SAP." I didn't. Instead, I watched as the fallout played out in real time. News started to trickle in through industry blogs and social media. 2 senior executives had been suspended pending an internal investigation, and Jenna's name was already being whispered in the mix. By evening, she came home looking disheveled, her usual polished demeanor replaced by panic. "What the hell is going on?" she demanded as she stormed into the house, her heels clacking against the floor. "There's an investigation at work. They're saying things about Tom and Charlie, and me." I feigned surprise, looking up from the book I was reading. "Really? That sounds serious." "Don't play dumb, Ryan," she snapped, her face flushed with anger. "Did you do this? Did you send something to the board?" I leaned back in my chair, meeting her glare with a calm smile. "Why would I do that, Jenna? I'm just your boring, clueless husband, remember?" Her jaw tightened, and for a moment, she looked genuinely afraid. "If you did, you have no idea what you've done." I stood up, finally letting my mask slip. "Oh, I know exactly what I've done. I've given your company the truth about you, Tom, and Charlie. About how you used company resources to fund your little escapades. About how you betrayed me and everything we built together." She froze, her face a mix of shock and fury. "You had no right." "I had every right." I cut her off, my voice rising. "You threw away this marriage, Jenna. You lied, you cheated, and you thought I wouldn't find out. But guess what? I did. And now, you get to deal with the consequences." For the first time in months, she didn't have a snarky comeback. She just stood there, her carefully constructed world crumbling around her. "I hope it was worth it," I said, walking past her toward the door. "Because now, it's all gone." As I left the house, I felt a strange sense of relief. The storm had broken, and Jenna was finally facing the reality of her choices. But this wasn't the end, not yet. there was still more to come. The fallout was nothing short of catastrophic for Jenna, Tom, and Charlie. Over the next few days, the scandal spread like wildfire through her company and the industry at large. Multiple employees were suspended, including Jenna, while the board conducted a full-scale investigation. News outlets picked up on the story, publishing articles about corporate misconduct and abuse of power at her company. Jenna's name wasn't mentioned outright, but it didn't take long for whispers to circulate. Her once pristine reputation was in tatters, and the connections she'd worked so hard to build were evaporating before her eyes. Friends who had admired her success began distancing themselves, not wanting to be caught in the crossfire. At home, Jenna was a mess. She spent hours pacing the house, muttering under her breath and firing off frantic texts and emails. Occasionally, she'd lash out at me, accusing me of destroying her life and ruining everything. But her anger only fueled my satisfaction. She had no idea just how far I was willing to go. One evening, as I sat in the living room, she stormed in with her laptop in hand. "You don't get it, Ryan," she spat, slamming the device onto the coffee table. "This isn't just about me. If I lose my job, we lose everything." I looked at her, unimpressed. "You mean, you lose everything? I've already made sure I'll be fine." Her face twisted in confusion. "What the hell are you talking about?" "I moved half of our savings into a separate account weeks ago," I said calmly. "You know, just in case you try to pull something stupid." Her eyes widened in disbelief. You did what?" "You heard me," I replied. "I'm not letting you drag me down with you. You made this mess, Jenna. Now you get to deal with it." She opened her mouth to argue but closed it again, realizing she had no ground to stand on. Her anger turned to desperation. "Ryan, please. We can fix this. We can go to counseling, work things out." "No," I said firmly, cutting her off. "There's no we anymore, Jenna. You made sure of that the moment you decided I wasn't enough for you. I'm done." The look on her face was almost pitiful, but I didn't let myself feel any sympathy. This was the same woman who had lied to my face, cheated behind my back, and blamed me for her actions. She didn't deserve my pity. A few days later, the official word came. Jenna was fired. Tom and Charlie were also let go, their careers effectively over. The company issued a public statement about their zero-tolerance policy for misconduct, and the investigation closed with several policies tightened to prevent future abuses. Jenna's professional life was in ruins, but I wasn't done yet. The divorce papers were ready, and I had one final surprise for her before I walked away for good. With the corporate chaos behind her, Jenna spent her days sulking at home. Her once confident demeanor was now replaced by a nervous, defeated woman trying to cling to the remnants of her life. She had been fired, ostracized by her peers, and publicly humiliated. Yet, in true Jenna fashion, she still refused to take full accountability. One afternoon, I came home with an envelope in hand, the divorce papers finalized and ready for her signature. She was sitting at the dining table, scrolling through her phone with a scowl on her face. "We need to talk," I said, setting the envelope down in front of her. She looked up, her brows furrowing. "What's this?" I sat across from her, my expression neutral. "Divorce papers. It's time to end this, Jenna." Her eyes widened, and for a moment, she was speechless. Then, like clockwork, the defensive attitude kicked in. "You're really going to do this to me? After everything we've been through?" "Everything we've been through?" I repeated, incredulous. "Jenna, you cheated on me. Not once, but twice. You lied, manipulated, and blamed me for your actions. I don't know what fantasy world you're living in, but we stopped being a we the moment you decided our marriage wasn't enough for you." She sat back, crossing her arms. "Fine, but don't think you're walking away with everything, Ryan. I have rights too." I leaned forward, my voice calm but firm. "Actually, Jenna, you don't. See, thanks to your actions, I have everything I need to ensure this divorce goes in my favor. Infidelity, financial misconduct, evidence of abuse of company funds. all documented and ready to present in court if you want to fight me on this." Her face turned pale as the realization sank in. She had no leverage, no power in this situation. I had outmaneuvered her at every turn, and she knew it. "You're such a bastard," she hissed, her voice shaking with anger. "And you're a liar and a cheater," I shot back. "So let's call it even." I pushed the envelope closer to her. "Sign the papers, Jenna, or we can drag this out in court, and trust me, you'll lose." She glared at me, her jaw clenched tightly. For a moment, I thought she might try to fight back, but then she grabbed a pen and scrawled her signature on the papers with shaky hands. "There," she spat, shoving them back at me. "Happy now?" I stood up, taking the envelope. "Not happy, no, but relieved. You don't get to control me anymore, Jenna. I'm done." As I walked out of the room, I felt a strange mix of emotions: relief, closure, and even a touch of sadness. This wasn't how I had envisioned my life turning out, but it was the right decision. I was finally free of her lies and manipulation, and I could start rebuilding my life on my terms. But I wasn't done yet. I had one last move to make before closing this chapter for good. With the divorce papers signed, I was legally free from Jenna, but I had one last move to ensure she fully understood the consequences of her actions. For too long, she had lived her life manipulating people and avoiding accountability. I wanted to make sure that her betrayal didn't just fade away like a bad memory. Jenna had always prided herself on her image. Even with the corporate fallout, she was doing everything she could to keep up appearances, clinging to whatever shred of respectability she had left. I decided it was time to strip that away too. I gathered the evidence I had collected, the photos, texts, videos, and even the financial records that tied her to Tom and Charlie. This time, I wasn't sending it to her company. I created an anonymous email and sent the evidence to a journalist who specialized in corporate scandals. The story practically wrote itself. A rising corporate star entangled in workplace affairs and unethical behavior, bringing down not one but two senior executives in the process. Within days, the story hit the news. Jenna's name was everywhere, her reputation irreparably damaged. She had already lost her job, but now she was essentially blacklisted in her industry. No one wanted to hire someone with that kind of baggage, and her professional network dissolved overnight. I knew she'd find out soon enough, but I didn't expect her to call me directly. When my phone buzzed, I hesitated for a moment before picking up. "How could you?" she screamed, her voice shaking with rage. "You destroyed me, Ryan. You've ruined my life." "No, Jenna," I said calmly. "You ruined your life. I just made sure everyone saw the truth." "You're a monster," she shouted. "You didn't have to do this." I let out a bitter laugh. "Didn't I? You cheated on me, lied to me, and blamed me for your mistakes. You humiliated me, Jenna. This is just me leveling the playing field." She sputtered incoherently, unable to come up with a retort. I hung up, blocking her number immediately. I was done listening to her excuses, her manipulation, and her lies. The fallout didn't just affect Jenna. Tom and Charlie, already fired from their positions, faced further scrutiny as the scandal became public. Their reputations were in ruins, and I had no doubt their personal lives were suffering too. The three of them had built a house of cards, and I had made sure it came crashing down. For the first time in months, I felt a sense of closure. Jenna had taken so much from me: my trust, my peace of mind, and the life I thought we'd build together. But I had taken back my power, and I wasn't looking back. Now, I could finally focus on what mattered, moving forward. With the chaos finally behind me, I started focusing on reclaiming my life. For the first time in years, I felt like I had full control over my future. Jenna was gone, her manipulation no longer a shadow hanging over me. The satisfaction of seeing justice served was real, but now it was time to move on. I dove into things I had put off during my marriage: hobbies, friendships, and even some long-forgotten dreams. I spent my weekends hiking trails I'd always wanted to explore, joined a local gym, and even started taking woodworking classes. Each new activity felt like a piece of myself I was rediscovering. My friends and family were an enormous support system. Jake, my best friend, was particularly relentless in making sure I didn't wallow in the past. One Friday night, he showed up unannounced with a six-pack and a grin. "We're going out," he declared. "I don't feel like it," I said, though I knew resistance was futile. "Exactly why we're going out," he countered, dragging me off the couch. That night, surrounded by laughter and light-hearted conversations, I felt a spark of normalcy. Life was beginning to feel good again. Professionally, I threw myself into work, using the distraction to propel my career forward. Ironically, the skills I'd honed while dealing with Jenna's betrayal, patience, strategy, and thinking several steps ahead helped me navigate the corporate world with newfound confidence. Within months, I'd earned a promotion, and my work life became a source of pride and stability. One evening, as I was sorting through some old belongings, I came across a box of photos from the early years of my marriage. At first, I felt a pang of sadness looking at the smiling faces of two people who once believed they'd be together forever. But as I flipped through the photos, that sadness gave way to something else: gratitude. Those years, as painful as they were in the end, had taught me invaluable lessons about trust, resilience, and self-worth. My newfound independence wasn't just about activities and work. It was about embracing the freedom to live authentically. I no longer had to walk on eggshells, constantly questioning my worth or wondering if I was enough. I was enough, and I was determined to create a life where I would never doubt that again. The scars Jenna left were deep, but they were also healing. And with each passing day, they became a reminder of the strength I had found within myself. The world was wide open, and for the first time in a long time, I was excited to see what was next. The years following Jenna's betrayal marked a complete transformation in my life. What had once felt like an insurmountable loss had become a turning point, a chance to rebuild and rediscover who I was. The chaos, pain, and revenge were all behind me now, replaced by clarity and purpose. One of the biggest changes was how I viewed relationships. The trauma of Jenna's betrayal had left me wary of trusting others, but over time, I realized that not everyone was like her. I began to open up, first with friends and family, and eventually with someone new. Meeting Emily wasn't something I planned. It happened naturally, through a mutual friend. She was kind, honest, and the complete opposite of Jenna in every way. For the first time, I felt what a healthy, genuine connection could be like. Emily knew about my past, and instead of judging me, she listened. She helped me see that while Jenna's actions had hurt me, they didn't define me. Slowly but surely, I allowed myself to trust again. Professionally, my career flourished. The skills I'd honed while navigating Jenna's betrayal, patience, attention to detail, and strategic thinking, proved invaluable at work. Within a few years, I had climbed the ranks, earning respect and recognition from my peers. I even started mentoring younger colleagues, helping them navigate challenges and avoid the mistakes I'd made in both work and life. As for Jenna, I heard bits and pieces about her through mutual acquaintances. After the scandal, she struggled to find steady work, bouncing between jobs and trying to repair her reputation. I no longer felt anger or bitterness toward her, only indifference. She was a chapter in my life that I had closed for good. One day, while organizing my new home, I stumbled upon an old journal I'd kept during the darkest days of my marriage. Flipping through the pages, I was struck by how much I had grown. The man who had written those words, angry, hurt, and full of doubt, was almost unrecognizable now. I had found strength I didn't know I possessed, and I had built a life that was entirely my own. To anyone reading this who might be going through something similar, here's my advice. Betrayal doesn't have to define you. It's painful, yes, but it's also an opportunity to learn, to grow, and to rebuild. Don't let someone else's choices dictate your worth. Take the time to heal, to rediscover who you are, and to create a future that reflects your values and dreams. Looking back, I'm grateful for the lessons I've learned. They were hard-earned, but they shaped me into a stronger, wiser person. Life didn't end when Jenna betrayed me. It began anew. And for that, I'm truly thankful.